Sure is. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us about you? So, because everybody else can hear you, I just can't.
I
I know
hope
you
so.
have a lot of good
I don't
things to say.
know. So, hi, I'm Roman with Holistic Dog Training. um, I'm a holistic behaviorist, and my passion is helping people and dogs reaching their, let's call it, relationship potential, um, without, of course, the use of any power, force, or any other adverse training methods. I'm doing this since 2007 ish, full time. Um, and the holistic approach in dog training is basically coming from a perspective that each animal is a sentient being and it is equal to humans. And so when we build a relationship and we have a dog in our home, we have to treat that animal just like we would treat a person or a friend or a brother or a sister, in taking consideration animals' needs first. So we want to create the environment for the animal to be healthy, appropriate for the species and breed and size and age, and at the same time offering as much freedom as possible. Now the freedom is limited because we're in a house, we have streets, we have our complex human environment, and that doesn't give us many options. But in that frame of a possibility and availability, people should know how far they can go and how much freedom they can give to the dog. Now, from my perspective, also what I see is that our relationship with animals is not just a service, like people have dogs and dogs do what people want, but it is an energetic relationship. It is, let's say, an arrangement on a spiritual level between animals and dogs, between animals and people. And that energetic relationship has a reason, and I find there are three basic reasons. A, both evolve emotionally and spiritually. The other reason is the dogs and us, we help each other ascend in a different frequency, in a higher frequency level. And the third reason is to experience our emotions in this dimension on both sides. So we share emotions with each other. We have an arrangement on a level of our higher selves and dog collective. And many people just have to become aware of that. There's not an accident that you have a dog or a pet or a cat or a dog as a companion animal. There's a reason for that. And I help people find that reason and bring that relationship to the highest potential. Microphone is muted.
And you do it in a way that is not traumatic or you're creating a better relationship with them and creating it in a way that is helping that ascension, right? That
Yeah.
very easy and gentle and creating an understanding with the
Right.
animals.
So when animals leave their own family, forced or not, usually it's forced departure. So with adoption, um, there are a lot of traumas coming with it. So the person who has the dog should become aware that trauma that happens in that period the dog wasn't with the person, and the trauma that can happen while they having that relationship. And traumas come in different levels. There could be a genetic trauma that comes in from generations of dogs, and dogs can handle it in two ways. The one is the dog is clearing and healing the generational trauma, his collective trauma in that group that he belongs, and he has to deal with his own trauma at the same time. So I've seen dogs who, beyond their own trauma, they also try to heal collective trauma, breed trauma. For example, we can say that over the several generations, the so-called pit bulls have been through a lot of trauma over their breeds. And many dogs try to heal that by building those new relationships. And through their experience with interactions with people, interaction with their environment, that information is being shared in the collective. So my goal is, when I do, for example, energetic work with those people, for them to become aware that the dog has a higher purpose than just being a pet in the household. He also does energetic work. And I see many dogs that have that kind of work usually are paired with people who are at least healers, whether they know it or not. And I've worked with many people who didn't know they have healing abilities. They just thought it's kind of like, yeah, nothing important. But once we work together and they see how much they're able to tap into that energy field, and recognizing and becoming aware of how much work the dog is doing with them, and for the dog and for the collective, they're just in awe. And actually, I work with a couple of healers who are healers themselves, professionals, and they had no idea that their dog was on that level until that become aware, and then they kind of change the way they work with each other. And then suddenly they recognize the dog actually gives a lot of information and does also work in the astral and different dimensions that they wasn't aware of. Like, oh, yeah, my dog is helping me. He's waking me up if I have an issue in my astral, and somebody wants to take over my body, and at some point my dog is here waking me up. Like, hey, you have to get up. You have to get up, you know? And it's kind of very interesting how those animals work in such a pure way that it's just amazing.
So is that kind of how then the like the dogs for epilepsy and the other dogs that I can't think of what all they can sense?
Yes, service dogs, yeah. Dogs there are three categories of dogs based on my observation. They are healers, they are teachers, and there are some I call companions. So the teachers, they have three categories themselves. It's a teacher, healer, teacher, companion. And then we have the healer in healer, teacher, healer, healer, companion. And then we have the companion teacher, companion, healer, companion. So we have this enneagram where they come into that chart. Now, I'll give you an example. A teacher that is basically here to make a big change and influence and send that person a message. His frequency is high frequency. He can basically go through all the 9 points at any time with any person. So he's kind of like the master teacher. He is able to create such a force to get his message over. Let's say, for example, that dog who is a teacher comes in with a healer who is getting off his path and starts working with his trauma, but he's angry, aggressive, violent in his environment. That dog can basically bite him to send him the message and mirror his energy back. The way you behave right now is like this. A healer will not do that. A healer will say, hey, I'm going to bite your face off. I bite you as long as you get upset about me, but I'm telling you, I don't like what I see, but will never harm him. But he can challenge the person. A companion, the way you act against me, I don't want to deal with it. Ciao, and walks away. A healer is those dogs who you see, they're gentle, they're very soft. You cannot make them upset at all. They know when you're upset, so they find a way to calm you down. So these guys are number 5. They're in the center of that enneagram. And then you will have also a teacher healer who will challenge you, no intention to bite, but he doesn't see a problem why he can scare you to get to the point that he wants to. So we see sometimes the dog can come in as a mirror and mirror your actions so you can see them. He can also channel energies and represent them to the person, becoming the energetic father, mother, brother, sister, or any type of energy that person has to deal with and becoming aware of. So, and he has the ability to play multiple functions in that enneagram in order to help that person ascend. Because if the person doesn't find his path and he doesn't work with his trauma and it doesn't work with his, let's say, shadow aspect, he will not be able to ascend. So the dog has the ability to show that shadow aspect towards the person for the person to start interacting with it and becoming aware of it. But if I am not aware of it and I see a dog reacting towards me like this and not seeing that I'm bipolar, I would get rid of the dog, but I would never have my lesson. But if I recognize the dog has a certain way to react towards me, and the reason why my dog bites me is because I got off my pill, because I think I can manage it myself, now the dog tells you, I don't like what I see. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So the times I don't, maybe there's a problem. And I had this example. It was, I think it was like 4 years ago, a guy in Florida had exactly that case. His dog was biting him. And we went through the whole 9 yards, checking things and asking questions. And something in my guts told me, ask him the question, ask him the question. I was like, it's none of my business about his medical condition. And it's something in me tell me, ask him, ask him, ask him. So I asked the questions, hey, do you have taking any medication that your dog could react to it? He says, no, I stopped taking my medication. Like, what medication? For manic depression, bipolar. Oh, so when did the dog start being reactive like that? And he's like, oh my God, when I stopped taking my medication. So basically the dog responded every time he went downhill, the dog wanted him to get up off his computer and get out for a walk. And that person became angry. And anger reflected towards the dog, and the dog tells him, I don't want to see that. So he was biting him. Once he went back on his medication, the dog was fine. Result, instead of putting the dog down, because that was his intention, he becomes his emotional support dog plus his medical alert dog. Just like that. So these are the kind of the weird stories.
What a story. Oh my goodness. So, dogs can serve, any dogs can serve in this capacity, right? It's just depends on you're helping them to match to each other's vibration.
Right. So I make them aware for them to realize what's going on. And I have several intuitive tools and divination tools to kind of create that mapping for them to see what's going on. What is the relationship with the dog? What is his role? If we do this, what will change? So we have that ability in that session, beside the behavior stuff, because there's an energetic aspect on the behaviors. There is other environmental factors. There are 3D, not 5D and not 4D. And then we have the trauma that comes in as a behavior. So when we have a behavior, we have to eliminate all those factors. And that's why I come in as a holistic, is that we have to look into nutrition. We have to look into bringing the body balance, clearing blockages so the dog can actually function to his potential. And if the person can help the dog function his potential, then the dog can help the person function the potential. So it becomes like a circle of support. The person helps the dog to help the person, and it becomes kind of a self-propelled system.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep it from echoing. I don't know why my speaker's not working. So, so one of the dogs breeds that fascinates me so much are the cattle dogs, the sheep dogs and the cattle dogs. And so they have that relationship with the other animals that they develop with that, and then they have the relationship with the humans, right? That they develop. And so are they like more advanced, or what's their story?
Well, there is an energetic factor to that. Dogs' consciousness shifted a lot the last couple of years. I think it must be started around 1984, where it become a shift. And I think after, let's say, 2000, there was another shift. That shift to consciousness, because I feel right now we are in an area that we as species and as emotional species never been, and an energetic species never been before. So it's everybody's in a new area. And I think dogs, especially dogs that have such a high emotional capacity, are able to connect to that level in that frequency that they have never had before. So it wasn't like that a couple of 100 years ago. It was a little bit different. So as we upgrade our emotions and as we upgrade our frequency, they do too, adjusting to the environmental frequency. So our earth changed and animals changed with that. Suddenly we see all these different species work together, like the cat with the bunny and the chicken with the other birds and dogs with wolves. Oh, it hasn't been before like that. It's pretty new. Like, at least we weren't able to observe it. I don't think it was like that. So I think we had a shift going on the last 100 years to a completely different level. Maybe we're coming back where we were before once upon a time, and it just helped us remember how it was back then before we had these different changes, right? I know you guys your viewers are more into the spirituality. I'm used to have people just talking about dogs. They would freak out about that. It's not something I usually share with people unless I'm very comfortable with people or they know what I'm doing, so we can open up a little bit. But 99% of the work is energetically. And I would say it's kind of like dog training is kind of a Trojan horse to get into that sacred relationship between people and dogs and just help them open up to that level.
So tell me your progress or your process, sorry, about training when you start working with a dog that I don't know what your most common issue is for a dog, is barking too much or
Yeah. Let's say, for example, we have a client that will call me and says, "Hey, my dog is constantly barking in the house." I had a case like that, and that dog would not stop barking. So the first thing we do is I have a behavior assessment. So we capture the 3D behaviors and just create a timeline. When did it start? What's the dog story? Vaccinations, medication, training approaches, parenting approaches. So the training approach and the parenting approaches can maybe different. Good parenting approach and a bad training approach, or very violent parenting approach, very violent training approach. And then we take in consideration other factors like how many people live in the house, other pets, other people who handle the dog, relocations, environmental triggers, allergies, and all these factors. And then we're looking into nutritional factors as well, because they can cause other issues. And then once we see some things don't really make sense, it doesn't add up, this behavior is not justified based on the environment and based on what we know, then I may upgrade and say, okay, let's look into that energetically, because I think there must be something going on. This is what we do then, the synergistic healing, where I have the person and the dog doing a journey together. It's kind of like journeying in a very gentle way. We clear the person. We clear the person's energy field, making sure it's a safe, we create a safe environment. And then once we go through a process of self-clearing and, making sure we are in the right frequency level, getting our energy flow going, checking in on individual traumas that eventually will block us of working with that dog. Then we do a shielding approach. Let's call it not a shielding, like a frequency boost approach. So the person's energy field kind of opens up a lot to that space where the dog is being invited to come in. So sometimes dogs don't want to come in. They say, I want to stay out. Then we have access to the dog asking the question, why not? So the dog can say, I don't feel safe in that place, or I need help. So I'm safe, I'm not feeling safe in that place, meaning is we didn't see something, so we're going to dig a little bit deeper and see why the dog doesn't want to come into that safe place. It's why it's not safe, because he wants us to work on a specific trauma before he enters, or the dog has eventually energetic attachments that need to be cleared because he doesn't want to come in with those attachments. Dogs are aware with those attachments, but they don't have, let's call it, the energetic power to do it from a 3D level, because those attachments are basically in the in-between layer between higher self and the dog's body, like in 5D. And so we're going to help the dog clearing those attachments or any, let's call it, energetic infestation or programs for him to be clear, and then usually they come in. And in that aspect, we can also see when a dog has any blockages. See, sometimes dogs have the tendency, especially healers, to hold that blockage for the person. They want to kind of help out and like, oh, I'm keeping your trauma for you until you take it on and off of me. And so that would be the opportunity, so we can trace the blockage and its origin that usually ends up to the person or to a previous owner of that dog. So then we have options, either to cut it off and sharp cut it off, or we help calling in the person or the previous owner so that the dog can have this energetic healing process for the person who abused the dog in the past to become aware energetically what happened and eliminate the trauma right there at the source, or it is going back to the owner that the dog is with him, like this caregiver right now, and that dog is just keeping a connection with a person's trauma that a person cannot see himself, but he can see it onto the dog. So the dog becomes the proxy of the person, so the person can see it and bypass ego.
That's really interesting, because we've always wondered, my little Howie, he was a stray. And so we've always wondered, what he went through previously. And yeah, I'd love to just, I don't necessarily need to know. I would just love to be able to clear it for him, and just make him comfortable.
I work with dogs who didn't want to clear their trauma because they were keeping the trauma to do their work. They consciously got into that level with this problem, so they need to work with it. Or they wanted the person to work with it. So I wasn't allowed to remove anything. They wanted the person to work on it. So I always take permission to do or not to do. So I'm not just doing it because I want it. As a dog, I have to have permission to do anything. Some dogs come up with their story that is different than the original story. Like his story is different from what people told me that it was in the rescue. Oh, my dog came from a shelter, it came from an abused relationship. The story that the rescue tells them to do to adopt the dog out. And if you check in with the dog, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have these problems. I just left the previous relationship because I needed to move on and do my new relationship because I had to work on a different level. So I have seen dogs that move from person to person and create environments where they have to leave and go to the next person. They're kind of like in transition from one place to the other. They just move on until they go to the right place.
Howie definitely found me. So yeah, he's my angel baby.
So
So another dog that I have, she's a terrier schnauzer, and she's very smart. I think that I talk to her telepathically. I
mhm.
believe that I do. And she's very active and, always jumping up to look out the window and stuff. And I feel like she suffers from some boredom. How do you deal with that with dogs?
Well, the first thing we need to look for is helping the dog based on the species, based on the breed, to have proper enrichment. A toy poodle is still a toy working dog. It's just a different size. A size doesn't define your working abilities. Okay, he was bred to a certain ability, so these are bred to specific genetic configuration. Um, So the first thing we need to understand, why is the dog barking and what's the purpose of it? Usually if I dig into the person's life, I would see that sometimes there's a sense of general anxiety or general fear of the future. There's an aspect of fear on that, and the dog starts guarding that energy of fear so nobody else will come in and add more fear to the equation. And so usually if people become aware of what they're struggling with that period of time, well, I'm worried about my work, okay, I'm worried about my financial status, I'm worrying about my relationship. That worry is a cloud, an energetic field in that house. And the dog channels that and he says, I have to keep that worry out of my house. And so he's more guarding towards his environment than a regular dog. Once this person steps into this parenting power and says, no, I gotta deal with it. I appreciate your barking. How about you go back and chill out? I give you something else to do. I appreciate. You will see there's a shifting, but it has to become our awareness. What is that energy that a dog tries to protect? Yes, we can go cheap and says, oh, well, the dog is territorial. So if that would be the territorial, if you change, the dog wouldn't change because it would continue being territorial. But guess what's going to happen once you change, the dog change. So how is that coming in? But you can only prove it if the person changes. If it just becoming aware of, oh yeah, I have this anxiety all the time, and it makes the person express his anxiety towards his environment, and the environment reacts to that into very real time event. I come stressed from the work coming into my house. My dog becomes more guarding because now I bring my stress in here. The dog doesn't want it. Try to keep it out of it. That would be an example. Other example for barking a lot could be trauma on the dog's perspective, meaning is the dog is a dog who was born in a breeding facility with no communications with his parents, total stress, and that can become a chronic issue as an early puppyhood trauma, and it's been carried on. So one thing we're going to do there is basically tap into the energy field and try to heal the aspect of injustice and this aspect of unsafety in that space, and bring the dog to the consciousness, but that's in the past, and now we're here in the future. Usually those dogs have lost the sense of presence. They're either stuck in the past or worry about the future, so they're not literally in their body in that state. So we bring them back. We can bring them back with some exercises that keeps the dog more aware of the present moment, being more aware. We can also help with grounding foods and some grounding exercises. Yes, we can do reconnective healing. Barbara, my wife, is specialized in that. So I usually reach out to Barbara and says, Barbara, can you help? Can you do a reconnective on that dog? And she gets even more information out of that when she does her healing modality. And that then I can take as a feedback and then adjust my training approach accordingly to the information we get from there too.
We try to give her some activities and stuff, to do to help keep her mind active, and I totally get what you're saying about, that we're creating the environment that they live in, and so we have to be really mindful of that. And I don't think that most people really think about the like some of the stresses and stuff that their dogs are picking up on. And that's really interesting. That's really interesting to consider that, and consider your I'm really into feng shui, and so I'm always thinking about, the energy that's in my house and stuff, and I would hope that it would be happy for her, but I don't know if maybe it's just not enough and she wants more stuff to do.
We have to see that some dogs struggle because they just want to be social. So social enrichment is important as food enrichment, as private, personal enrichment with the person doing certain actions. And also there's an aspect of appreciation in that. We usually complain if the dog does certain behaviors, but we don't appreciate for the dog doing the right thing. And once we add the appreciation in the equation, thank you for barking, I appreciate you. How about you return back to me so I can reward you for that appreciation, and I'll give you an alternative behavior, an alternative job that I value more than that job. But in order, I have to deal also with the body's memory, because I'm not dealing just with the brain of the dog, I'm also dealing with the body memory. Now, if the body memory as trigger equals barking, which is an alert dog or a guardian breed, then I want to look for teaching the dog an alternative option, option B versus option A. Option A is boring, not getting any reward. Option B is highly rewarded, highly appreciated, and the dog will make a choice using option B versus option A. And then we have to accept that the dog as a species has a need to express his worries. Like, we have to listen to somebody who has to say something, and then take that and say, I appreciate, thank you for letting me know how you feel emotionally. I'm not suppressing it. I'm not causing you trauma for not being able to express yourself. But one time telling me what the problem is, and then I can fix it. How about, before you feel the need to bark about it, how about you check in with me? Telling me that you're about to lose your poop because somebody ring at the door, so I can help you out. So we're kind of a teamwork here. And that is the big shift. When we teach the dog's sympathetic nervous system, instead of going to freeze, fight, or flight, to introduce him flirt and favor. So flirt with the situation, see if that's really the case. And if you're not sure if you can solve the problem, then why don't you ask me a favor dealing with it instead of you dealing with it? And then the dog will say, hey, there's somebody at the door. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take care of it. So if you want me to open the door, I would like you to go to your bed. Otherwise, I will not be able to open the door. So all of a sudden, we have a job description, and we have a real-time synchronized behavior. For me to open the door, you have to be in a safe place. Only then I can open the door. It's kind of like doing a dance where your partner is synchronized with your movements and you don't need to push them. He just feels the change and just shifts accordingly. And it becomes kind of a game. I do, you do, we do at the same time for the same reason. And that is where the relationship comes in as a synchronized relationship. And that's the highest level. Some dogs can get there, some others not really, but you can get very close to that synergistic relationship.
But everybody in the family has to be synchronized to that same action, right?
Yes, dogs build secure attachment relationship with one person. That's the primary person. And at the same time, the dog can have other type of relationships, but not a secure attachment relationship. It's kind of like, if you have a problem, which one of your both parents will you call first? That's your secure attachment relationship. Or you either call your grandma, because grandmother is more safe than parents. So that would be your secure attachment relationship. If we bring a dog in and there is another dog in the house, so there are two dogs and one person, and we let the dogs figure it out, then the dog likely will do a secure attachment relationship with his friend dog and not with you. Meaning is if a dog has a problem, they will just bark about it and you have no clue what's going on. So therefore, when you bring a dog in the house, first you have to build a secure attachment relationship, and the dog start trusting his environment because he appreciates that you can help him. Anything he needs is being provided for, so he doesn't have to worry about it and he doesn't have to bark about it. And all of a sudden things calm down. Now, some dogs have been through trauma, and I can compare it with a child where the mother is not really attentive to the parenting. Mom, we're out of milk. Oh, okay, I'll buy one tomorrow. Mom, we have no clothes. Oh, yeah, well, I haven't done the laundry yet. And the child doesn't trust the person anymore. So the child starts parenting himself and doesn't trust the person. So we have the insecure attachment relationship. And dogs can have that too. To the point that a dog can have an avoidant relationship because there is no communication at all. Like you coming home and your dog was like, yeah, hi. Like, I'm going for a walk? Whatever. So I can see that. And then what we have to do is start reawakening the relationship from scratch. Start all over again. And people recognizing why the relationship didn't work. Oh, well, I was too busy and I wanted to have a dog when I come home to kind of ground myself and feel loved, but I wouldn't give love in return. So it was just a one-way relationship. And dogs are very sensitive to that. They say, you know what? I'm not a cat. I don't want to. I'm just doing something else. I'm just bark at the window until you bark, and when you're here, I'm going to bark even more because everything overwhelms me. So what exactly happens to your dog? Not sure yet. So I would say let's do a behavior assessment from scratch. It takes about an hour. Go through everything, including diet, eliminate any stresses that just add up to each other. Body doesn't feel well, allergies, low quality food, or side effects of any medical treatment in the past who causes leaky guts and things are not healthy. I would say, hey, how about we chip in a nutritionist and sort this thing out? And so the dog's immune system is boosted up, his body feels happier, and he doesn't need to worry about stuff. And he has more tolerance to adverse triggers. Like the doorbell, he will calm down faster than without having those healthy bodies, without having the healthy body.
It's been suggested that she is allergic to the dirt. What do you do about stuff like that?
Okay, so I'm not taking the role of homeopath, but I suggest to go that route and help the dog finding the root of the allergies. That could be also a trauma, could be also connected to you. Usually everything that happens, 99% is allergy reacting to food, but there could be different factors to that. Poor breeding quality, environmental factors, poor nutritional, and then we have leaky guts because the dog wants lots of medication, over vaccinations, and that can cause the digestive system to really suffer, lack of probiotics, and so the nutrients cannot be taken in, and the dog is overwhelmed. If there's a little bit of a protein leaking in the dog's system, he has allergies, but if it goes outside too, that adds on top of it, and then you have a flare-up. So some dogs have grass allergies, but I think going the homeopathic way, that could be easily addressed. So some dogs have grass allergies, but I think.
Okay, so probably, I mean, we've changed her diet several times trying to find, the really the best food for her and stuff, and kind of at a loss right now. So but I want to try to work with her more on stuff that you're talking about. One thing that comes to mind is the doorbell things that they advertise for dogs to ring the doorbell. Is that a good thing, or does that prevent you from forming a relationship with your dog?
Well, it really depends how in tune I'm with our dog needs. I know my dog in the morning, she needs to go potty 7 o'clock because dogs have they love routines and they love rituals. So yeah, 7 o'clock, it's our bathroom time. And then the next thing we're going to do is 12 o'clock. And then the other time will be before dawn, before dusk. And so we take the dog out, and then we have dinner, lunch, or breakfast, depending on the situation. I take my dogs out. Oh, here she is. So I take my dog. Oh, she's so sweet. So I'll take my dogs out in the morning for a quickie, and then we have breakfast, and then we go out again. They don't need to bark about going to the bathroom. They don't need to scratch or ring the bell. However, if my dog has an emergency, he will whine in a certain way that I will be aware of. That's an emergency. And then he will kind of knock against the gate or against the door. And I know it's an emergency. And that's usually the case. But I can hear their weird whining. They have a weird whining. Okay. At night, sometimes they have gas for whatever reason because they snacked on something they shouldn't. And we have some gas issues. Usually we check in on that. Okay, how does it feel to me? Okay, so you can do a body test and see yes, no, asking yes, no questions. Some people do with the hands, some people do with the body. Some people have a knowing. You can check in with your dog. My wife is super sensitive on that. She's like, his belly, like, belly. Oh yeah, he was eating grass in the morning. Okay, I need to get something to help him out. So yeah, we communicate in the family as well.
But I know Barbara uses like the I can't think of the word right now. Sorry, but intuition. But you use that as well, right? When you're working with dogs.
Yeah, I do. But sometimes you have to outsource because we are so biased with our own dogs.
Yes, and this is my Howie. This is Howard, and he's the little doggy that found me. So,
okay. So if
he's been with us for, gosh, I don't know. I think he's probably about 12, I think. So we feed him canned green beans. He gets probably about a third of a can of canned green beans every night, and that has totally changed his personality. He acts like a puppy. Like, he is so happy and energetic, and
what food is he on right now?
Probably feels like hydrated is what I imagine.
What food is he on right now?
He's on a special blend for urinary tract. I can't think of the name of it, but it's like a thing that we get from the vet. No. Can you hear me? Okay.
We need to talk about that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
We don't want to say the brand. It doesn't really matter right now. So yeah, let's talk about that. We don't want to shock the people. Like, but my vet prescribed it. Yeah. Okay, that's a good prescription, but there are alternative options that are healthier than that. And we need to
Sorry,
address the
technical
issue,
difficulties.
not just the symptoms.
We don't want to shock the people. Like, oh, but my bed is okay. Description.
So I got you covered. We're gonna get you a nutritionist to take care of it and make sure your friend is up and running from nose to tail.
We have tried to feed him other vegetables and stuff, but that's all that he'll eat is the green beans. He won't eat his other vegetables.
Yeah. His body needs some extra support, and he's old. He needs senior food. But that diet you're on is very specific for a specific reason, but it's not. We need to get him on a healthier diet. And you will see an overall change. Because here's my thing. Only if you have healthy nutrition, you can vibrate to your potential frequency. So if you have a healer and he's not really on a healthy diet, he will suffer a lot. Because he tries to clear energy from you. He's going to take it onto him, which is his choice, not your guilt, right? And we have to give him that option to have as healthy nutrition as possible, because he cannot self-supplement himself. There are some healing modalities out there who help the dog making his own nutritional choices. It's called zoopharmacognosy, where the dog is being offered a variety of different herbs, and the dog picks his own herbs that he needs. Then we have a high sense of body awareness, so they know which specific ingredients they need. They can pick them up. But as pets, they don't have access to those ingredients, and even if you let him loose in the yard, he will not find those nutrients that he needs. So we are trapped with a regular, highly processed diet that doesn't even contain healthy protein. So I don't think your food has actually protein in it from meat base.
Yeah, we definitely want to give him the best. All of them, all three of them, we want to give them the best stuff that we can.
So you have 3 dogs?
The other, we have Howie and Ellie, and she's the Schnauzer Terrier, and then we have Moose, which I believe is a another type of terrier. He's black and white spotted. You and I have talked about him before, and the other issue that we have with the 3 of them is that he's so big and that he's kind of scary to them. And so we let them out in the yard in shifts. and so I don't know if there's a good way. We've tried, just little by little to get them to commingle, and we've tried to holding them and being around him a little bit, but they do act really afraid of him. And so I know that makes him feel bad, because he's just trying to play. He's more of a puppy.
They really sometimes don't have this conscious awareness of size. They just want to play. Something you can do to help out here is to have a main interaction with your dog in person, burn him off a little bit, and then you're going to create a common exercise where both dogs can perform. So to do that, you can do it in between the gates. Set up a small baby gate, one dog on one side, one dog on the other, and you can have them fetch toys or treats. Treats, everybody sit, perfect, go get it. And then come back again. And what do we do when we come back again? Nice sit, both dogs get a treat. Now they'll learn to be together without being in fear, and we'll have this barrier in between. So they'll learn to walk away and approach and return, approach and return. So this way, they don't get overwhelmed with this massive, huge sized dog and this petite little dog next to each other, so they don't feel overwhelmed with that. So we're going to help the body respond better, and then you can take them out for a walk with your partner. You and your partner going out for a walk, And as soon as they're not really deeply engaged in like, what are you doing? Why are you walking like this? Then you guys can shift to the outside, have these two dogs walking next to each other and get used to being in close proximity. As long as you go in the same direction, doing the same thing, everything is safe. Now, if you let them out in the yard, like in the morning, and everybody's full of tense, everybody wants to get his energy out, and then the stronger one wins in that case, and the younger one is like afraid to go outside. So we have to create that balance of safety first before we can go further.
We have done the walking with them, and they seem to be okay with each other in that situation.
Right.
But they get too close. We do have a question. Tara says, I have 2 healer pups that are almost 4 months old, and they are getting very aggressive with our other dogs. What's the best way to break that aggression and teach them to be more gentle?
So if I understand right, she has 2 healers, puppies, so they're likely siblings, and they are aggressive towards the other dogs. It kind of a little bit complex, because likely those 2 speak their own language. They kind of grow up together, and the big guys do something that those young guys are worried about. So aggression, we have to see, is a tool to survive. So there is no really aggression with the perspective that we have. Aggressive dog, he does it on a purpose. He's mean to other dogs. That's not the case. Usually they show these signs of aggression because they feel unsafe. The question is, why do they feel unsafe? And what's the situation they feel unsafe? Do they feel unsafe if a person is nearby? Do they feel unsafe if the other dogs have certain intentions we're not paying attention to and we think they're doing nothing, but in fact they do a lot? Sometimes non-action is an issue. Sometimes dogs who want to work towards the breed traits, like in that case a cattle dog, is very intense, and he will do a stare down because that's what he's learned to do from his genetics. And so the other dog will take it the wrong way and tries to avoid it. And so there's little avoidance can trigger the other dog, or you're not playing with me, I need more playtime. And so that aggression comes out as frustration. Looks like aggression, but it's not. So I would say it's kind of like, I will not be able to answer the question directly. I need more information about the other dog's story, plus his young dog story, how they come up, how they grew up, what's their other breed traits, and how people respond to those behaviors. If the dog doesn't feel his needs are met and he doesn't feel protected by the person, then they take over and get care for themselves towards the threat without taking the person's any consideration. So, especially because they're 4 months old, I would say there is no aggression with the meaning of like they do it on purpose because they want to take over your family or something. There is something going on that people are not aware of, and I would definitely talk about it. Like sit down for an hour and take everything down, create that map, see who does what, why, and having a video footage is great because then I can see detailing. For example, I worked with a person the other day where one of the dog supposed to be aggressive towards a shepherd who was a resident dog, and the Great Pyrenees who just came into the family supposed to be the aggressor. But watching a couple of videos that I assembled, I saw actually the Pyrenees is defending himself because the shepherd is bullying him, and you guys didn't see it. All the behavior tells my dog, I want to avoid the conflict, but I'm cornered and have no way out. But if your corner continues, I will aggressively attack you, so I will be safe. And once we talk about the video, then the people says, oh my God. And I was correcting their Pyrenees because I was thinking he's the bad guy because he was barking. No, he was defending himself, and the silent bully got away with murder.
She says that they attacked her Yorkie, who is 4.
Mm-hmm.
Tara, is that 4 years old or number 4 dog?
Well,
So they have 2 healers and 1 Yorkie.
okay, so the two teamed up against the Yorkie, as it seems. That could be that the Yorkie does certain things, has certain privileges.
She said it's 4 pounds. Sorry.
Right. So that Yorkie may have privileges the other dogs don't see fair, and the Yorkie has eventually a behavior that the person is not aware of that is inappropriate based on the code of ethics of the other dogs, and that can be a trigger. So I see this many times happening, that people care for their specific dogs specifically different, and they don't see the bad behavior, the inappropriate behavior, the very stressed behavior. And the dogs see that and they want to address it because nobody else does. So the adult dogs, or the pup, in that case, the puppies, are addressing the issue that the caregiver doesn't pay attention to. So I think there's something that the person doesn't see is happening here, and she only sees that these big dogs are threatening the small dog. But what if the small dog is the instigator and this guy is just frustrated about it? So that's something we have to look a little bit closer. So I've seen this many times that people just misjudge. I know people brought home the wrong dog. And they brought another dog and the same thing happened again. And again, the wrong dog was sent away. The third dog came in, and then they figured out that actually the original dog had a problem and the other dogs were not at fault. So yeah, it happens sometimes.
And I know it would take you some time to really diagnose that whole situation, right? And really see what's going on.
It would take us about an hour to figure things out and see the sequence of the things. And then we will better understand what each dog is going through. So we have to create a behavior profile for each individual dog. So we be able to identify when the behavior started, what was the first response. Sometimes our intervention makes things even worse because we think the fault is another dog, and then we protect the dog who actually is supposed not to be protected, but should be put in place with the meaning of that behavior is inappropriate and not justified, and we should change that. Sometimes dogs feel threatened for no real reason, and the way they behave towards the other dogs is triggering the other dogs. And a cattle dog as a breed, he's challenging. If something he doesn't like, he has to basically challenge it. That's the healer, what he does. You should see how a healer actually works in the field and how he's not backing off. You have like 700 pounds of an animal challenging him, he would not back off. He would just attack it for him to get what he wants or what he needs. I'm not saying they're innocent, right? Because once you don't have a clear family structure and let these guys do their own thing, they can be totally off. So it's just hit or miss right now. We have to really sit down and kind of see the whole behavior profile.
What other animals have you worked with? I know you've worked with horses, and what else? What other animals do you work with?
Other than dogs, I work with cats a little bit. I work with horses a little bit. I work with piglets. In my healing practice, I worked with the help of the people in synergistic healing with turtles, with birds, and children, actually, too. For my surprise, I was challenged to help a family with a dog, and then they asked me if I can help with a child that had a specific emotional behavior that didn't understand what it is. So that helped a lot. So yeah, whatever, I can work with any animal a person feel attracted to. I guess there will be no problem working with any species you consider a pet and you have any kind of emotional relationship.
How interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, right.
So, working with cats, that's got to be a challenge, right? Because they seem so aloof.
Well, I'm not working with cats from a behavior perspective. I leave it up to the behaviorists, cat behaviorists. They're specialized with that species. But energetic, synergistic healing, I have no problem working with any animals as long as the animal has an emotional relationship with the person. That's totally already an energetic relationship that we can work on. They're all sentient beings.
Sorry, now my camera froze. This is fun.
If we take pets into our home, we need to recognize that they're not pets, they're still dogs. So we have to treat them like house dogs and not as pets. And I'm saying this with a conscious mind that if we take in as a pet, we have this mindset that a dog has to comply to certain needs of us. But if we consider this a house dog, it's a dog who in real life he will be a dog outdoors or doing his stuff that he has to need to do what we bred for. And now we're changing his, generational experience, and we downsize it down to a house dog. We need to accommodate around that, and we need to give him this outlet that he needs as a species. And that's an important part. In other words, if you're being abducted by the aliens, right, they should treat you like a human and not like a pet, because you need still to be a human. You need your emotional needs, and you need everything has to be taken care of. But taking that away from you, it's not serving you at all. So it's just serving them. No, not referring to the aliens, but I'm talking about that we have to be aware that dogs' primary needs need to be fulfilled first before our needs are met.
That's an interesting perspective also, because I've never thought about it that way. I think of them as family members, and I tend to think of them, probably treat them more like children, because that's what people without children do, is treat their dogs like children.
Yeah, well, we are on the same page here. I want to see the dog as a family, because once a dog is in a family, he is family. But he's still a species, he's still a dog, and these needs have to be met. He needs to socialize with similar species, because this is how he expresses himself freely. I cannot expect a dog to behave like a cat or a dog to behave like a human in a house environment, not having his friends interact with, not being able to exchange his language, and does his body emotional interactions with other animals of the same species. It's kind of like us living in isolation, living with other species. How would you belong to meet another person talking to the same language? The same dogs go through the same way. So we can isolate the dogs from their own species, and I don't think that makes them happy. Yes, some dogs are introverts, but that doesn't mean they're not social.
Very interesting. Well, we've gone over an hour here, so I could go on and on. I have lots and lots of questions, but thank you so much for joining us, and I really do appreciate your time here.
If anybody needs help or anybody has any questions, you can reach me on holisticdogtraining.org. Go into the chat and ask a couple of questions. My main practice is online, so wherever you are, as long as you have internet and you have a way to communicate, I can help you no matter what. I have a team behind me that can help you, and I feel very confident we can handle any situation, any behavior situation, from a nutritional, healing perspective, from an energetic perspective, from medical perspective. Everything is covered. So yeah, if you need any help, welcome to message me and refer to the show so we know where you guys are coming from.
Yes, your website is listed in the description on the video, and just thank you for the work that you do. It's so great. It's so great to have that different perspective on stuff. So
right.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you too.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and end this crazy broadcast. And maybe we can get together and do another interview again. And
Yeah,
we'll be so
sure,
crazy.
sure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.